Let these men be in no doubt. They have chosen a mighty opponent!
About a year ago, I made a video on Conqueror'sBlade titled, Will It Be Worth It? Conqueror'sBlade Beta announced. And in this video, I talked about some similarities I saw with the game and another one very similar to it called Tiger Knight. It's one that used to be decently popular before Conqueror'sBlade ever existed. The differences between them is that Tiger Knight followed a directional combat system instead of the Dynasty Warriors kind, and there were also NPC lieutenants that followed you into battle with their own strategies and skill sets. I wanted to make a video today because we're coming up on the Conqueror'sBlade official early access, whenever that decides to arrive, and I wanted to talk about the famous topic, will it be worth it? It's strange for me to think about how it's been since January of 2018 that I've watched and supported this game. From then to now, it feels like a completely different beast altogether. Back then, we were still twiddling our thumbs in Valhalla, and even so, back then it did for some reason feel much more alive. Getting to what I was referring to earlier in the video I made so long ago, I brought up some points that worried me about Conqueror'sBlade initially. The two main points I talked about were matchmaking / balance and server issues, both of which are ones that Conqueror'sBlade, as we know, have struggled with a long time. Starting off with the matchmaking, the game Conqueror'sBlade itself has definitely grown since its starting days. We have so many new features to enjoy, such as the open world mechanics, as well as bandit camps, more maps to fight on and do player versus player environment, the new regions and units, etc. But matchmaking has always been a problem and concern for a great many reasons. Players that are just starting out may find themselves at the mercy of a veteran player that's much higher leveled, or those of us who just know more about the game than they do. To combat this, the developers have tried to integrate matchmaking into the game as best they can. Back in one of the Chinese betas last year, there was even a bracket system in play. 1 through 19 players would be together, and then past that point it would usually be 20 to 29 or more depending on the player count. But this is something that ultimately depends and revolves around the player population. Now Conqueror'sBlade is a game that needs to have a decent to high amount of people playing it. Without the people there, the content does not run at its full potential. No matter what it is, most of these mechanics are group or guild based, and on top of that need plenty of people to fight against. That is why if they were to enforce a matchmaking system right now, or in the previous betas for instance, you would have seen a lot of instances where either there were pretty small team-based matches instead of the full 15 players, or matches not even popping at all because we might not have been able to get enough players in the same bracket, especially with all the server issues that were going on, at least for North America. Unfortunately, because of issues with the class balance and the current systems we have in place, there are many players that have already or currently do express their dismay about these issues and how it may be ruining or will ruin their experience in the future. This is pretty much a double-edged sword because no matter what you do here, it can be detrimental in some way. I think one of the best solutions for this is for developers and publishers to make sure their game is populated by marketing and consistently promoting it whenever possible. Also giving it ample time for that advertisement to marinate before the service go live. An example of this is some people didn't even realize the final closed beta test was happening until after it started, or maybe not at all due to the advertisement for it being solely given through Discord and maybe social media. This probably resulted in a loss of potential players that could have assisted with testing the game and made the experience more enjoyable for everyone. It's not a good look when it feels like the game itself may only have about 400 to 500 players total per server when it's this close testing phase wise to launch. I think that in the future, if ample time is given so that people are able to make plans and more can find out about it too, I think it would be much more beneficial, especially for its launch. Speaking of launch and bringing me to the next topic, server issues. Now the game itself has improved a ton optimization wise over the past year, completely night and day compared to how unstable it used to be. But of course it's not all without its issues. Back in the house beta there was information going around that my.com hosts the EU servers themselves and the North American servers through a third-party server host. No idea if this was ever confirmed nor accurate, but I do know what I was experiencing, which is what a lot of others were too. Several server crashes, as well as queues not popping correctly, severe ping lag upon starting matches and people stuck in loading screens, delays in map changes, and even the first day there was a ton of people waiting outside the starting cities unable to enter. And these issues definitely killed a lot of the population numbers over the first few days of that, to the point where we'd only ever have 1 to 3 games or 4 going on at once in the NA server. And there would always be 30 people in the game total, so that meant we never had more than about 60 to 120 players in matches total, not counting what was going on in the open world. And I know that a lot would say that these are common issues to see in the beta, and you're definitely right about that. Don't get me wrong when I bring up these issues, because I do understand that these things happen and I'm not bashing the game because it did. But why it's detrimental is because of the overall outlook on the situation. If I put myself in the general player's shoes, This game has technically been in testing phases for over about a year and 4 months now. That means that in all that time there's been plenty of opportunity to ensure that the servers are working properly to the best of their ability and make sure everyone has the ability to have a good experience. A lot of people will be expecting the launch of the game itself to be working decently enough to the point they'll be able to actually enjoy it. You cannot have something like what we experienced in the Twitch Berlin event going on in your game at early access. The majority of players that come from the my.com website and Discord, or that might just be vets in general, may not mind too much, but the general community and Steam players coming into the game definitely will, depending on how long it lasts. To add to that, when you're releasing a game on Steam, it needs to be in a very playable state at launch, otherwise despite the game being free, a great deal of people will have a problem with it, and it could severely chop down the player base over time as a result. The reviews alone are enough to drive some people away that don't have context on what a game actually is like, and the game's reviews are already on mixed. In conclusion, I think that the best way to resolve this is that before launch, if the server is actually through a third-party server host, that ends ASAP. This type of thing won't affect EU and Russia, of course, but on the NA side of things, it could affect a lot of us and maybe even kill the server before the game even reaches 6 months. Being an NA player myself, I would hate for the game that I've been hoping for so long just to go down in flames, because the server I want to play on and the community I've grown with and players I've come to know just continually has major issues past launch. A lot of people would say the simple solution to that is to just play EU, but to be honest, if it comes to that option, I personally wouldn't feel inclined to, especially depending on how much time I already spent playing on the NA version at that point. If it just dies 3 months down the line, my urge to go further probably would go with it, but since it's free to play, it wouldn't bug people that much anyway that didn't pay for Founders Packs. The main answer to the question, will Conqueror's Blade be worth it, is hopefully. I hope that when it comes to launch they're taking it seriously, and I hope that whatever issues are popping up right now or in the past, whether it be class balance or server issues or matchmaking, get looked at and resolved to the best of their ability. When it does come out, it will be free to play, so regardless of what does happen, it will definitely be worth looking at and trying out, and burning time if you're a player in need of something. I hope they do a good job with that one, I really do. It's grown so much and it would be a shame to watch a piece of it or all of it fall apart. So ultimately, if it's worth it or not, we'll just have to see. But also with that info, that is all we have for discussing for Conqueror's Blade today. Thank you all very much for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful night or day. And farewell.